Greetings and welcome, everybody. Now we are beginning this course. So, um, we have to make everything quite small so it's understandable and you aren't overloaded. But one thing I'd like to share with you is that everything is like a fractal. So, at first, you might start to be like, I haven't got a clue. And then, as you start to piece together things from some of these discussions, the penny will start to drop, because this course is actually um, a fast track into understanding, when we talk about things like chakras or multidimensionality, that it's actually not as far-fetched as you think, and that actually there's a lot you're already doing. So I think a lot of people these days get very put off by all this woo-woo spiritual stuff, and sometimes that's people trying to sound really big and clever, and mystifying people with rhetoric which is exclusive and not inclusive. And what we're trying to do here is to introduce you to these concepts through something that you know very well, your own body, and through applying it to natural law and natural time. So you're already basically onto a head start because you've got time on your side. So there's lots of new concepts, and we really encourage you to ask questions in the forum, because that's where we're really going to go deep together as a constellation. So that's our center point. But also, on this first day, I will be opening space etherically. So I'm going to be calling in our ancestors and all our parts, our triggered parts, any bits of us that don't feel aligned. Lots of things that I do when I'm opening a shamanic style of space, and that's going to help to create a grid of connectedness between us all. So that's why it's important that we have things like your email address, because I will visualize and connect us, and we will also do that at the end. And as you know, at the end of the course, we kind of draw some of the proceedings to a little bit of a standstill, but then you're integrating in the last few days. So, as you may or may not know, this is a 52-day cycle, and in the Galactic Mayan calendar, we have a set of 52-day cycles in every 260-day gestation or galactic spin. And this is lining up with the human body and these 9-month cycles. And that is not to be confused with a galactic year, which is very similar to our normal solar year. So we have these different cycles running concurrently. Now, these castles, there are 4 wave spells in each castle. So there's a circuitry going through a red sign, a white sign, a blue sign, and a yellow sign. This brings your journey through the colours and into a stage of completion every 52 days. This castle is called the Castle of Enchantment, and it's very important because it marks the last castle of this 260-day cycle. Now, at the time of making this particular transmission, we've been in a very epic year. So we're making this transmission during coronavirus year, or I don't know how many years there will be, but we hope not too many. And I think it's fair to say everybody's had some sort of process. So that's actually a really good thing. And even better for people like us who are taking part and doing this work together, especially for people in the global north, where it's like, oh my God, winter's coming. Oh fuck, what's going to go on? We're like, okay, so let's go into this together, and we have time on our side. So the last castle, which can create a lot of growth, because it's where we're going to recapitulate what we've been through in these last 9 months, so that we can basically get rid, so that we can come into the next galactic spin, the next gestation, almost seeding a new baby of who we want to be, right? So I would say that in terms of important years in the cosmos that we've been alive, this is a pretty chunky one to be coming in to do it now. So you're really encouraged to look at what's come up in the last few months. And the red moon, which is our first wave spell, is like, wow, it's the perfect one to start this process off. Because for those of you who know anything about astrology, like Western astrology, the sun is often very much about our overt, sense of self and being, and the most positive, optimistic side of us. And the moon is more about our unconscious or hidden self, and that which is illuminated by our sun, but is it's a very important part of us, but it's that which is in the shadows. And there's a lot of talk about shadow. There's a lot of talk about love and light these days as well, and a lot of negating of the shadow. And I saw a beautiful transmission recently by a lady who was saying, I think her name's Kerry Kay, um, that and I really resonate with all of this because the shadow and the unconscious, which is also what the moon is ascribed to, is very much about what has been repressed in us. Now, we have a tendency to go, it's dark, it's shadowy, I don't want to know, and to push it into a state of A, polarity with the overt side of us, but B, to really underestimate the fundamental importance of something about that, which is something that has been repressed, is something that in the history of us or in our bloodline is something that probably was a gift but was chastised or shouted down at a certain point that created a wound. So we have this tendency to push against the shadow and to relegate it to stay away, keep it in the shadows, whereas it's really about what needs to come to light. So there's a lot of talk from people who at least are trying to grapple with the shadow about at least seeing it. But the fact of the matter is we often still in this kind of uneasy, yeah, that's my shadow, rather than going, right, what is that? That is something that got repressed. So it's become a little bit mutated, but not mutated, but it's become like contracted. And actually, when we actually embrace our shadow, we actually can give growth to that which was repressed. So to start to say, okay, the fact that I have, sometimes I've got really strong boundaries and sometimes I'm really flexible, but also to understand why that's really good. And to see these things that might look contradictory, but then to map them enough to actually realize, wow, okay, that is where it got repressed. So how do I now reconcile it with everything else to understand how to have it in its splendor? And this is also explored in systems like the Gene Keys, where Richard Rudd looks at our core genetics and those that are created and are repressed, and then how it turns into a gift and then a superpower. So I think what happens in a lot of work is that people get, that's my shadow, and just stuck with it. And forget that we are here to grow and that our shadow actually is there. It's a root story that actually holds one of the greatest stories and codes to where our highest potential may be. And for us working with the Lotus Consciousness Program, this archetype is really strong for us because it's very much, it came to us in like a vision. And it's very much, the lotus is, it's this beautiful flower that represents transcendentalism in so many lineages and wisdom and enlightenment. But the lotus eats sludge and crap and mud as its fertilizer to go to a higher place. And so many of us are embarrassed about our roots or embarrassed about stuff we did when we were a teenager, and then we get stuck in shame, we feel guilty about something we did, we never quite reconcile it, and we don't understand that that was a building block, it was nutrition for our higher purpose. So many of us are missing the actual point of who we are, right? Because that was there, it was put in our timeline, it was formative for us, and we're too busy like, put it into the bed and don't look at it, or just like, that's my shadow, ouch, so rather than, I got this and this is why it can become even a better thing. So the first part of this immersion will be some of the cringing stuff, and the moon will bring to light some of the things that have been hidden from, and that we've obscured. And as we do some of the techniques and these sharings that we do, these are laden with codes to help you to understand and to activate at certain points to go, actually, I don't need to push that away. When we work with the wave spell magic, if we actually know a little bit about what that wave spell is about, rather than being non-mindful about it, we can actually go, oh, my head is totally up my arse today. And then we'd be like, well, it's this day and it's this way of spell. Oh, it's leading to something. Whereas so many of us are just flailing around in hypervigilance or hypovigilance with all these unresolved traumas, and we can't see the wood for the trees. And if you look at many lineages like Tibetan Buddhism, there's a really important aspect to being able to observe and get to a part of being a spectator of your process, to remember that you are not your wounds, and that they're doing something and they're there to teach you something, and something's there to be resolved. But so often we are blended with our wounds, and we're just like this. Now, what better year to discuss such things, as so many people have had latent fears and unresolved traumas brought right up. And of course, one of those main ones for most people has been the fear of death. And I've spoken about this in another related transmission, but so many people are foregoing freedom because they would rather not go outdoors than die. And it's like, we're all going to die. No one here gets out alive. Okay. So the moon is here to bring that into our awareness that, okay, we have these contracted feelings. And the moon is also, and this section is going to be more about the chakras and the energetics. The moon is very much about the lower centers of the body. Most of our core wounding is related to things that happen when we were very young, and we create this series of synaptic fractals that mean that we keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again. Because what happens is the trauma gets frozen and unresolved, and it creates a faulty neural pathway that then creates, like, instead of a healthy trajectory from A to B to have our normal day, we are always consistently going through a roadblock because that's what's happened, because something's got stuck. And so it's almost like, yeah, there's a roadblock because this is not okay. And we consistently have these deviations and attractions to clunky crap. And when we start to unravel these and start to unfreeze our traumas and start to be able to observe them, we can actually clear them, and we can actually give our system time to breathe and to choose another way of reacting. And that means that we're actually going to create what's called a healthy neural pathway, where we're actually in a nicer, more abundant, more healthy way of being. At the time of making this transmission, we can see that so many people, and I'm sure we've all done it at some point in the last few months, are in a lot of these synaptic processes, and people are creating fear and creating their worst nightmare. And I'm not going to get into what's right or what's not, but there are some people who would love a vaccination and some people would not love a vaccination, things like that. And there are people who would not love a vaccination, who are so busy being preoccupied by it that they're probably going to create it. Yeah. So this is why in this course, whatever your viewpoint is, we would like to help you here to open up the possibilities to not having a contracted synaptic reaction to things, so that whatever is going to happen in the next few months, you're actually an agent of your own law of attraction, rather than constantly attracting these unresolved trauma situations into your field. And this often goes beyond even the singular person to stuff that was carried along our genetics from our family line. So some people are actually reacting from great granddad so-and-so who fought in the First World War and got shell shock, and then they're like about certain things. And it's like, that's not what anybody's saying. You're reacting from this contracted place. So as we accumulate all these things, these things, because they're repressed, because we're not allowed to have these feelings, we weren't allowed to express the trauma, to work with it, these are the things that start to make us glitch. They start to create our ego identification and our sense of difference with other people. So it starts to create friction. It starts to create imbalances in our emotions and how we relate. So these things also manifest in sexual ways. And these things also manifest in addictions, because often we are trying to soothe away from, oh my God, that thing, I don't want that to happen. So in internal family systems therapy, we would call that a firefighter. So it's like, get out the wine, get out the chocolate. We're very near to the trauma. Let's soothe, let's distract, okay? And then we also have these other parts that are like managerial protector parts that are just telling us off and creating shame in our system. And these things all get stuck in the lower centers, and these create imbalances where we're not feeling grounded. Our unconscious is running the show. They say that the unconscious brings 90% of what we need. It basically is 90% is what our unconscious is bringing in. And if we have all this debris, we're bringing in chaos. And there are things that we can do to clean that. But it's really important that we start to observe it first. So this wave spell is very much about looking at the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and the solar plexus. And when a person is stuck in this imbalance of the lower triangle, which often means that their core strength isn't great, means they may be having issues with feeling embodied or feeling addicted to a lot of things, crap boundaries. There's also a very big tendency for people to be totally preoccupied with story. And all of these things are using up all this energy that we could be using for other things and on our real mission. But I mean, I'm sure we can all think of somebody who's just gossiping all the time. You see them and they're just like, yep, 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 yep. And not only are they draining their own energy supply and all those sacred breaths that they've got, they're also depleting everybody around them. And it's all nonsense. It's all subjective. It's all from a contracted viewpoint. And so they're basically just a living trauma bundle. So it's very hard for us to unravel all these things all in one go if we're not mindful of them. And we would really like you to start to look during this course as when you're stuck in story and drama. And this is a really surefire way of never feeling free or in our heart space and never being able to go into these higher dimensions that we talk of. We talk of the 3D to the 5D shift. And the first, second, and third dimensions are very much the ones in the lower triangle, in the sacral, the root, and the solar plexus. And these are where our material values come in. So shopping, sex, and these things like being the relation to death, these are all called the serpent codes in some cosmologies. And when we have an imbalance of these, we're just on this rat race that's staying, or rat wheel, I should say, like me, where we're going to be talking in a low vibration, attracting low vibration people in, attracting gossip, and also attracting chaos and drama. And it's really, really knackering. So I'm sure that we're at crunch time, a lot of us, where it's like, I can't go through another 6 months like that. And that is one of the gifts of Corona. And Corona actually means crown. And we're actually in this journey going up to the crown chakra and a little bit beyond. So there's a lot of hidden teachings with Corona. And it's a really amazing tool for us to see where we're sitting in these contracted, lower, conflictual emotions. And the moon is very much about purifying. And in shamanic cosmologies, depending on which cosmology you're working with, the moon is the root chakra in some, and in others it's the sacral, but it's one of the two lower ones. So the waters carry our consciousness, and they also are the conduit for our DNA. And they're also the most purifying thing, and they're always what we are and what the earth is. And this element of purification is also why we start in this wave spell in this particular program, because going hand in hand, we want you to start to embrace detoxification processes, which will start with food and being more mindful and working with your lower centers and your lower triangle so that you can stop having this weakness that attracts drama, because a lot of us our pelvic floor isn't strong. We're not applying techniques for our core strength. And these things can actually help us to even eliminate this attraction to drama. So that's why we're going to have the detox, and we will go into even having a digital detox so that you can start to rewire to actually go, do you know what? Because what's happening is many of us are like, I'm not vibing with those people anymore. It's my old life. And every time I see these people, I feel uncomfortable and I can't grow because I'm sitting down the pub listening to this crap, and I've been listening to this for 30 years. And I certainly felt quite trapped where I was in certain scenes because it was just kind of like it was the same conversation. And I was like, I was always involved in healing within those scenes, but there was just a certain point where it was like, this is not really doing me much, and I'm changing, and when people say in relationships, it's not you, it's me. It was me. I was changing, and I still love some of the people and all of the people, but I don't love some of what's going on, and so it's better I just eliminate. Okay, so we can still love people, but not have to interact with them. And one of the sobering truths of this time is that that's a big thing that's happening to a lot of people. So through this program, we will hold space for each other to explore those things. I'm not saying you have to ditch all your friends, but I'm certainly saying if you're on a one-way street with people and if it's not actually doing you any good, you might want to explore giving your system space to bring in something better. And we look at people who were being locked up for months with incompatible partners that they were incompatible with for years, but they'd just been pretending for all that time. And look at the medicine that brings. I mean, it's brought a lot of suffering, but we don't have time on the planet now to be working with or hanging out with people who are not compatible with our highest purpose, because there is a job to be done. And this course is here to help you to find who you really are. And Corona is again doing this amazing job of making people go, I've realized I'm really liking working at home, and I actually like my children, and I might want to see them before they leave, for university or for work or whatever. And this is the perfect opportunity to just go, right, I'm holding space with a group of people, and we're all going to take a few bold steps, and we're going to do this together. And that's, again, why the forum is super important. And we will be having these almost fortnightly satsang check-ins where we're going to go deeper into the dreaming of each coding, and different things will come up. Sometimes we'll end up doing a clearing, sometimes we'll do something shamanic, sometimes we'll just talk. We'll see, the cosmos will tell us. So that's a lot, but we've actually managed to fit in quite a lot into a reasonably short space of time. I'm aware that we don't want to overload you, so we will be sometimes putting extra little subsections in. Please note that if you can watch the general wave spell talk like this each time around the day that it starts, it's going to help you to actually harness that energy and to be like, right, this is what I'm in. And then you can catch up with the other ones. So always watch the main one, and then there are some subsidiary ones with some of the practices in them, and you can slot those in as you see fit. But try to stay on top of this, because you will get more out of it. We're not going to beat you up if you didn't, but we want you to really, really grow here. And we feel that this is an important intake for this course, and we really want to go to the next level with it. It's always next level, but just looking at the time that we're in, it's just full on. We pretty much finish this galactic spin. We go into the really significant eclipse season that is leading into what some people are saying is going to be the parting of the dimensions. If you're keen, later I will share some very interesting videos with you about all of that. For now, let's stay grounded. The lower center is very much about being grounded. And this whole woo-woo new age thing is often lots of people who kind of had a bit of a channeling of something and then have decided that they're a celebrity healer overnight. And grounded approaches, if you talk to all the real yogis, we have to understand the root. We have to go through that journey. We have to prepare the lower centers in order to grow properly. So we have the rising and falling of things like the Kundalini. And it is irresponsible to share any teachings with you that are like, let's go in all over here. We have to start with these more noble, humble, traumatic beginnings in order to go anywhere and for it to stick. So don't worry too much if all your shit comes up, because that's what we want. And yeah, just also if you do need proper therapy off the back of some of this, do get it, because we're here to support, but there's a line we have to draw in terms of boundaries and how much energy we can put into this that isn't going into the level of you need a referral, okay? And I want to say something else just about the numerology around the moon. And the moon in the Galactic Mind calendar is number 9 of the 20 signs. So there are 20 signs. This is number 9. And a 9 is very much about life, death, rebirth. Now, we even this time start in Scorpio. And Scorpio is, again, Scorpio is water, moon is water, and Scorpio is very much about just kill it. And, having a death and rebirth cycle. So we're being told that in some astrological ways, this Scorpio season may not be as full on as some, because actually we've had a lot of planetary retrogrades. So we start the course with Mars and Mercury in retrograde, so things will be slow and maybe a bit sludgy, but midway through November that all straightens out and we're going to have a quickening. So I really encourage you to languish in your muddy pool for the beginning bit, because you're going to get really hit with that Scorpio energy and that moon energy if you so call it in, and you can clean all of that. And actually we're going to have a real momentum coming up to the end of the year, which is all the stuff that's been like kind of weird and slow and clunky this year is suddenly going to start to come to a point of clarity while we're all on this course together. So the number 9, that's very much what Scorpio energy is about. And it's also, just looking, is it that? I think it even is number 9 in the astrological numbers. It's close. It's close anyway. So anyway, it's also there. Ariel Spilsbury, who's written the Mayan Oracle, which is also a set of oracle cards. It's hard to get. It's really beautiful. I once had it, but it's gone into the ethers. Ariel Spilsbury writes about just the importance of the moon in starting to remember that we ourselves are transmitters of consciousness. And the moon is about self-remembrance, and it's about coming back to who we really are. And so many of us have sat without a full spectrum awareness of our ancestors, our own journey. So the moon can really open us up to that. And it's an octave below the warrior. And I'm actually making this transition today on day 1 of the warrior wave spell, which is the last wave spell of this current castle. And I just got told I had to make it today. And the warrior is about being a conduit to cosmic consciousness. So experts in the Galactic Mayan calendar say that the moon, when we enter into it appropriately and we do all that lower work, it's exactly like the lotus, because the lotus reaches up to receive codes from the sun, and it becomes this transcendental magic thing. The octave up is the warrior, which we're on today. So I'm talking to you about what can happen to you from that vantage point, and this is what you're opening yourselves up to, is this shift into this higher frequency of amazingness. And the beauty of things is that on the very last day of this course, you will be on number 13 of the, you'll be on day 260 of the 260-day cycle, which is Sun 13, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it is. And so it's like the most transcendental of the transcendental to finish the whole cycle. And then we start another 260-day cycle. So it's just for you to really understand that as we remember, and when we're together, we remind things. Sometimes people end up being a mirror for something, triggering something that needed to be triggered. So just let yourselves explore that, because it's really vital that we let that come through, because it's going to help you to remember things. We've seen huge things when we've done these courses before, and this is we've done similar courses, but we only did a pilot of the Lotus Awakening program. It was a slightly different program before. So for us, this is the first time to properly do the Lotus Awakening program. And under this astrology, it's very powerful. But when we've done similar courses, things just happening for people. So my final signing off is please check in with us on the forum. We are still a young organisation, so everything's not as slick as Facebook, but thank God it's not Facebook. And we really want to create the vibe there. So please stay with it. Please check in. Self-responsibility and self-remembrance, hey? This is not about being a victim anymore. It's about working beyond that. And we will acknowledge each other's wounds, but we will send you correspondence from time to time, but you have the information, you have the login details. It's so important for you to take self-responsibility and to keep up. I see too much nanny stuff, and nanny stuff doesn't help anybody to grow up when they're an actual adult, right? And I see too much nannying of, just don't remind you, we've got a class today. And it's like, guys, you've got the schedule. So unless you've got some sort of problem with processing information, and you need extra support, we would like you to all be self-responsible and keep up. We will send you occasional reminders, but this is not the way forward. If you have problems understanding the technology, message Francesco and he will help you. But please, keep up, because this is for you and your growth. And I cannot implore that enough. I'm going to shut up, right? So from Yellow Magnetic Moon Day, Warrior Day, to Red Magnetic Moon Day in 13 days. Loads of love. We really hope you enjoy and grow immensely from this immersion together, and we're so looking forward to going into this with you all. Loads of love. Ciao, ciao.